Join us at Glossy's Beauty and Wellness Summit from November 11th through 13th in Napa, California. Influential beauty and wellness leaders will meet to discuss strategies and pain points, discover innovative tech, and ultimately make valuable business connections through one-on-ones and casual networking. For a limited time, we are offering $200 off with promo code GBS24, no spaces. Again, that's promo code GBS24 with no spaces. Go to glossy.co/beauty summit for more information and to secure your pass today.
Hi, welcome to the Glossy Beauty Podcast. I'm Sarah Sperkviner, senior reporter, and with me I have Lexi Lebsack, our West Coast correspondent. Hi, Lexi.
What's up? How's it going?
Good. How about you?
I'm good.
So today I'm thinking about YouTube. Were you ever into YouTube?
So I think I'm like slightly older than the average person who grew up on YouTube. I was recently chatting with Michelle Fan at one of our Glossy summits, and I think I'm like maybe 2 years older than her. So I think I just barely missed it. But I have, because I've been reporting on beauty for so long, I definitely have seen this rise and seen I don't want to say like hysteria, but this like excitement around YouTube. And it's so crazy because obviously it's impacted beauty so much, but I even see my little nephew who's like 7. We were at Target last year and he saw these like little toys in these like mystery packages from some YouTuber that he loved. And he was like, oh my gosh, and started freaking out. It was actually kind of cute. And then it was like this little like fidget spinner. And I'm like, wow, we just overpaid for this.
It's funny because I am also, I guess, a little bit too, I don't even know. I guess I'm a little too old for it too. It seems like the people that really grew up watching YouTube religiously maybe are in their mid to late 20s now. Today on the podcast, we have Claudia Sulewski. And actually, something funny about Claudia is that she is really close friends with a friend of my younger sister who also had a YouTube channel in high school, who's in her late 20s now. So that actually kind of aligns with the timeline that we're saying.
How funny.
And I remember that. I remember my sister's friend having this YouTube channel and she would do fashion hauls. And I was like, what is, it was so foreign to me. I had no idea.
It's still such a huge thing. And the beauty people, wow.
Because they were kind of the first influencer to celebrity pipeline.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
And Claudia has over 2 million followers on Instagram. And so, by the time she launched this brand, she'd been creating for about a decade.
What kind of is she do mostly beauty content or is it lifestyle or what's her thing?
She does now she does vlogs that sort of take her followers through a month in her life. She's showing behind the scenes of the brand, but she definitely, she started, I think her first video she talks about on the podcast, she was putting on her mom's blue eyeshadow. So she definitely has a rich history in beauty. Like so many people who have gone from creating to founding a brand had not only thought about doing so, but had, the insights from her followers to have sort of a built-in community and essentially focus group. And now we're talking to her as she sort of rebrands and introduces a new iteration of the brand and has done so with feedback from her community on sort of what they wanted to see. She's brought down the prices, which is really cool. She took on investment from Ben Bennett and the Center.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's kind of a totally different version of the brand than came out initially, which was totally self-funded.
Oh, how cool. So she's really at this really pivotal sort of turning point for the brand.
Yeah, totally.
And where do they sell, or is it just DTC, or do they have distribution?
Just D2C for now.
Okay. Oh, how interesting. Well, we've seen a lot of big brands. I'm not super familiar with this girl, but I would say so many brands have come out of the Center that are pretty remarkable. So I'm excited to hear more.
Yeah. It was a really fun conversation. And just, it's amazing to, see someone who has literally grown up on the internet. And I really enjoyed hearing her talk about it. She enjoys hearing from her followers. And I think, I'm sure it can be strange, having people approach you on the street and they literally are I know what your house looks like. I really can't imagine that. But at the same time, then you also get to reap the rewards of that and have them be excited to buy your product and go on the journey of building a brand with you, which is really different than founders who don't have that and don't have a following. I mean, it's a I've reported on influencer founded brands for the past 4 years now. And there's so much to be said about whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, it's not going, I think where I've come down on it, the TLDR is kind of is it going to make your brand a success automatically? No, but it's a springboard. And I mean, 2 million followers, and that's just her Instagram, is definitely a springboard. And so, it's definitely something.
Yeah. I think the influencer world is fascinating. It's like Hollywood. It's I like how you compare it to kind of sort of compare it to celebrity in a way, but it's almost like a more authentic celebrity experience, because it's you really are choosing to watch. You are choosing to sort of vote with your time of who these people on YouTube are going, who the people on YouTube who are going to blow up are, because Hollywood, just to compare it, is such a guarded and really insidery place. There's a huge wall around Hollywood and people can't just move here and break in. That's not how it works. So I feel like this is such a fascinating thing to see these people kind of come out of a normal, I don't know where she came from, but just sort of a normal place.
Yeah, it's such a good point what you're saying about it being kind of having something to do with location almost. The brand originally had 1 scent, now it's going to have 4, but that original scent was called Crescent, which I'm pretty sure was actually the name of Claudia's street in Chicago, which is where she first got started. So there's definitely something, really sweet, something there about sort of location and how anyone can maybe be the next big thing from, their basement wherever, which I think makes it feel more relatable, whether it's, to your nephew or someone at home, a teen girl, whoever it may be.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I love that. Well, I'm excited to listen.
Thank you. Here's my interview with Claudia. Hello, Claudia. Welcome to the Glossy Beauty Podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today. You have had such an incredible career life, literally starting when you were 13 years old on YouTube. Before we even get to your brand, what inspired you as a 13-year-old in Chicago to pick up one day and make a YouTube video?
Oh my gosh, it's wild to think back just how young I was when I first started. I mean, before I ever started my YouTube channel, for a few years leading up to that, I just loved video editing. That was the thing that sort of brought me into it and made me really excited about content creation. I just love to edit. And that's kind of, that was the first love. I mean, YouTube was still so new at the time. I think the website was created in 2005 and I started in 2009. At the time, there were not as many creators. And so I think even just the buckets of content and options, or just kind of categories that people were making videos under, it was fewer than what it is today, right? And so I think at the time, I really loved making just home videos. I stumbled upon some beauty guru videos, makeup tutorials, hauls, just talking about all things girly. And I thought, you know what? I'm a girly girl. This is great. Let me just take my excitement towards editing and just fit it into this box. And I just quickly fell in love with that. I mean, I genuinely did not know what I was doing. My first YouTube video was some sort of blue smoky eye using one of my mom's expired eyeshadow palettes. It was not legit in any way. And then, you fake it until you make it. You learn as you grow. But yeah.
I love that. And I mean, social media, we have 9,000 different platforms we didn't have back then. Mm-hmm. But when you think about your own channel, how has it evolved since then beyond the fact that you're no longer using your mom's blue eyeshadow?
I mean, I think I've, of course, just grown and changed so much as anyone does. I like to think and reflect on the fact that I've willingly put myself on the internet through like the most transformative years. I mean, I guess your entire life you're always changing, but you know, going through puberty and having your first boyfriend, your first kiss, you're having braces, you're moving out of the house, you're graduating high school, like all of these things, I documented my life throughout all of those. And so, of course, that's going to reflect on the platform and my content itself. But I think generally I would say I've leaned into lifestyle and content that just feels very personal and very homey and very close to me, while still having this kind of general umbrella of beauty-focused content. But I think that also has just changed with people's interests. And I think like the whole parasocial kind of concept to TikTokers, YouTubers, any sort of influencer online, you know, it's all at your fingertips and you can share whatever you feel most comfortable sharing. And I think that relationship is so fascinating and exciting, and it's wonderful. I just feel so lucky to have that with my audience and continue to like nurture and foster that, you know?
It's funny you say that because like I regularly interview, you know, like these A-list celebrities, big stars, millions and millions of followers. But the people that I would say that I have the most parasocial relationship with, it's like for me, it was like I interviewed Emily Schumann of Cupcakes and Cashmere. And my friends and I started following her when I want to say we were 15, 16 years old. And she was one of the first fashion bloggers. And I held nothing back because that's how I am. I was like, I remember when you got engaged. I remember when you got pregnant. Like, and thankfully she was so sweet and lovely and was like, no, all of you girls feel like my little sisters. And like now we follow each other. And like she was not scared, but thank God I didn't scare her. And I got to write about her candle brand. And for me, it felt like such a full circle moment. But like, I imagine that that's how some of your followers are with you too, that things are a little bit more intensely parasocial when people feel like they've watched you grow up. And like, right?
Yes. 100%.
How do you handle that?
I think you just, here's the thing. It's like, I did this to myself. You know what I mean? This is all information that I'm sharing. So I think, you know, when it first started happening, of course, it is like a little bit strange to meet someone that you've never met before. And they're like, I know the color of your bedroom walls. I know, you know, this and this about you. You know, that definitely still happens. I'll meet someone just out in public and they'll be like, so how's Peaches? How's Moose doing? Like, you know, it's so, but it's great. I love it. I think it's very, very sweet. And I always take it as such a compliment because, you know, posting anything online, I think the fear is like, oh gosh, is anyone entertained by this? Is anyone, you know what I mean, even interested? And it is very sweet to, I don't know, I guess just meet viewers in real life and get to chat with them. And it kind of also cuts through a lot of like the awkwardness. They're like, okay, anyways, so I know everything about you. Okay, so I need your advice on this. You know what I mean?
What do they ask for your advice on? Like beauty or life?
I think it's like, I've definitely gotten questions about like content creation, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Whether it's like, oh, I want to start a YouTube channel or something like that, you know, whether it's advice or not, or just like a specific question or something. It's like, that, but, you know.
Yeah. And it's like having a sort of always on focus group, right? For both content and as you started to think about launching a brand.
Absolutely. Having an online community definitely feels like a focus group. I mean, I think because at the end of the day, and I think sometimes people forget this, but like we are all super reachable. Our phones are right in our hands, you know? And so, there are so many platforms to be reading comments or messages on or exactly like feedback in person. I think it's one of the wonderful advantages to having such a tight-knit community online, you know, because everyone is so easily accessible, as am I, which is like maybe, you know, a scary thing to admit, but it totally is because we're all, you know, so connected. That's just like the society we live in, you know?
Yeah. So tell me, when did you first start to think, you know, in the past, essentially like, I literally can't do math, but like 15 years, like about launching a brand and taking it from just content creation to product creation?
Yes. So, well, for starters, I've been making content for so long. I think I've hit well over 10 years. I've done a couple collaborations here and there. I did like a wildflower phone case, but you know, I think as I grew up and continued to make content and watched other creators or peers in the space, there was like a wave of merch, for example. A lot of creators started launching like t-shirts and hoodies and all these things. And I never necessarily felt aligned with that. And I just kind of knew that like, if I were to ever build anything and put my name on it and stand behind it, I would want it to feel very meaningful. I would want to feel very passionate about it and sort of like save that moment for when the time kind of felt most right for me. And so it was kind of always something in the back of my mind. I think just as a creative, like there's so many ways to express your creativity. I'm such a visual person. And so design, font, color, all of these things, that really excites me. And so it's always been sort of in the back of my head. And at some point during COVID, the idea came to me of just having this jar with body cream. And I've always kind of also, I don't have an explanation for it, but I always kind of thought if I were to do something, it'd be body care. And so it's kind of one of those things where like the ideas just started coming out and suddenly I was doing it. I don't know. I'm so grateful that I just started to do it. You know what I mean? Like there was no one came to me with a deal and was like, hey, do you want to be the face and the name to this? Like I'm very grateful for just, having the idea planted in my brain and just started doing it. It's one of, I think like if YouTube has taught me anything, it's like you really can create your own opportunities. And it sort of came in with that same mentality of like, I think I really want to do this and I feel like I really need to do this. And I'm just going to start taking those little steps. I have no clue what I'm doing. And that was my approach when I was 13 years old. And so, it was kind of this like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but here we are. And suddenly we're relaunching. That was a long answer. I'm sorry. I'm rambling.
No. I loved it. And I just have so much respect for that, like, you know, willing to just dig your heels in and just, you know, go for something. And, you know, before we get to where the brand is now, about a year after its first launch, when you did that, you were just going at it really alone, right? And sort of self-funding, scrappy. Tell me sort of about doing it that way. And like you said, not embarking on it with a partner or a backer or whatever.
Yes. So when I first launched, I was entirely self-funded, which of course is very scary. And if you had talked to me at the time, I was, oh gosh, such a different version of myself, just filled with so much fear, of course. And I also would like to mention that I feel so lucky to have been able to self-fund something. And I have YouTube to thank that and just saving my money for all of these years to be able to create a product and be able to test the waters by myself without, you know, an investor in that early stage. And when the conception, the idea first conceived in my brain, I started doing research and, you know, of course I don't have a lab and, you know, needed to find someone to help me create this product. And so I hired a team to create one product with me. And I'm so proud of that body cream and we created a beautiful thing together. And I think I just learned so much along the way. And I'm so grateful for that initial approach because I learned a ton about like what goes into owning a brand. You know, when I first launched, I was the one that was answering every single customer support email and just like signing off as like a different name. So because I thought it would be like weird and unofficial if it said like XOXO best Claudia. I think I was like using the name Lauren and people are like screaming at me. No, I'm kidding. But
you are not alone in that, by the way. I know so many founders who tell me a version of that story.
Of course.
So.
Yeah. I mean, you have to start scrappy because it then allows you to appreciate once you do have support and you do start hiring, more team members, employees, all those things. But yeah, I was extremely hands-on. I mean, of course, it was only one product. And so it was easy to manage. Actually, easy is definitely a sweet way of saying it, but it was manageable for me, and I just learned a ton. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I would maybe pass on to someone possibly wanting to start a brand. You don't have to come out with this, line of product, 5, 6 SKUs, whatever. Like it can be one thing and you can see how it goes and allow that to be like your little tester and learn things from that launch and being able to pivot and all these things. And so I think it just launching one product allowed me to take it slow and learn and having room to grow and pivot and all of those things, right? And so I'm really happy that I started that way.
It's interesting because you've definitely had a pivot in that first year, maybe more than other brands. You partnered with Ben Bennett, who many of our listeners know Ben, but is behind so many brands. Phlur, we've had Chriselle on with me, Naturium, Make, Prequel. We've had Dr. Sam on this podcast as well. So many amazing founders, creators who have then become founders like you. How did that partnership and investment come about? And how did you decide that after initially deciding not to partner with anyone that you did want to take on a partnership and an investment?
Yeah, I think, after launching, I think things just got very real, of course, and towards the end of last year, I knew that my current setup, I needed more support in order to be able to focus on the angles of business owning. In order to focus on those areas, I needed support in the admin work and in the emailing and the day-to-day sort of work. So at the time, towards the end of last year, I was just asking anyone for, any contact or recommendation. And I was just taking calls and meetings and trying to learn as much as I can just about business owning, right? And sort of building those blocks. And I, of course, personally have been such a fan of Ben's brands. And it was one of those like serendipitous, like we had a colleague in mutual that connected us. And it was one of those phone calls that was like supposed to probably be like a 10-minute call. And then 3 hours later, we were like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? And I just feel so lucky that we connected. I think when choosing a partner to continue to grow and build your brand with, it is maybe one of the most important steps that you take because you need to be so aligned on your values and just, what direction you want to go. And so I feel so lucky to now be a part of the Center Brands and have such a wonderful team that really fills out like all of those categories and all those pockets that I just know I am not the best at, you know what I mean? And so it's been so wonderful now kind of like entering this new chapter of really having all of that support and getting to like funnel back sort of like, that creativity and have those juices flowing in a way that just feels fun and exciting and explorative again. I think like I wouldn't take anything back about my first launch, but it was very intense. It was very stressful and it did not leave any room for play. And I'm saying this in such a position of like gratitude for all of that, but it's no joke.
no, totally. Okay, so now the brand is relaunching.
Yeah.
You have 4 body washes in 4 scents.
Yes.
Is it 4 new scents or is one of them the scent of the original?
One of them is the original, yes.
Okay, and which one? Is that Crescent?
Yes, so Crescent is the original scent that the first body cream had. And, the idea behind building out fragrances, one of the biggest sort of like feedbacks, or like one of the most common sort of comments I would see, on the different pages on the brand page, was just talking about the fragrance and how much people loved it. And I think straight away after launching, I recognized that and thought, okay, my audience is really, really passionate about something that smells really good, which was very exciting to me because I've always kind of dreamt of having a focus on fragrance. And so I think with this relaunch, I wanted to sort of like reset the vibe a little bit and provide more fragrance options for those that maybe like want something a little bit more woodsy or want something a little more bright and fresh, and allow that to also explore into color. This relaunch is more colorful than the first one, which I'm very, very excited about. And that was also something that I learned after launching. I was like, I'm craving color, So yeah, we've relaunched the nutrient-rich body cream. It's now in a sugarcane tube, making it much easier to take anywhere with you, throw in a bag, even just the application process. Again, another thing that I learned and just ultimately decided, okay, this is an easier product to use if it's in a tube and you don't have to put your fingers into it, Mm-hmm. And so we relaunched and reworked the body cream as Crescent. And then the 3 new scents are Bergamot Bond, which is like, it's our bergamot scent. It's so just bright and fresh. And it's kind of, we wanted to make sure that it still felt kind of warm and luxurious. And so the bottom notes, like there's still like skin musks and cashmere woods and amber kind of at the bottom, so that it still feels very luxurious and warm at the end as the scent wears off. Naked Neroli is our floral scent, which is one of my favorite. They're all so good. I love them so much. And then Sacred Santal is like our woodsier, kind of warmer scent. And yeah, those 4 fragrances carry through onto our body wash, which just sort of felt like the natural progression of like, this is the next thing I want to launch, something that pairs well with the body cream and creates this sort of little ritual, little routine to then be able to continue to build on.
I know that like that jar was such a big part of the story the first time around. And yes. I hear you on the portability and the sugarcane and all of that. Were you at all sad to let go of that jar? Because I know it's like your baby a little.
I know. So we still have it on the site and we're still going to be selling it.
Okay.
But I think it was like, I just as a user of like the product, I think using it myself, I just recognized what desires and wishes I started having moving forward, And so I think it's one of those things where like at the end of the day, it was the formula that I think most people fell in love with over the jar, if that makes sense. And that, of course, was another way that my brain was kind of like, okay, pivot. You know what I mean? Like it's about the fragrance. It's about the ingredients. It's about how this product is making everyone's skin feel, all these things. And so it's definitely like, of course, that jar in my brain, it's like my little baby and all these things. But it really does feel like a luxury good. It also made it very expensive. And so now we've definitely lowered in prices to make everything more accessible, which I'm so excited about as well. And so, yeah, it's still available to buy online. I think it's more of just kind of like this luxury good. If you want this on your nightstand to be chic, and if someone breaks into your home and you want to chuck it at them, like it's for sure a weapon. That shit is heavy. But like, you're not going to put that in your car. You know what I mean?
Yes. It wasn't very travel ready.
Yeah.
And in this first year of Cyklar's existence, was that something you were hearing from your fans, that they wanted a lower price or they wanted a lighter package? Like what?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And also when you're building something, like I think for me, I just needed to learn sort of like what sacrifices I would need to take, or just what were kind of like my own rules of like what I want this to be. Because I think when I started building and formulating, I just kind of was like, yeah, let's make it as best as we can, right? And then it reached a point where suddenly like my team at the time stopped me and they were like, okay, so now you're going to have to sell this for $98. And I'm like, okay, so let's reel it back. You know what I mean? And trying to figure out, I think like that was also something that it was all very new and didn't fully understand like margins and all of these things. Yeah. And so I think it's to take this opportunity and kind of be like, okay, this was expensive. Yeah. How can we rework this to make it more accessible? And one of the ways for sure was creating an option that didn't have this heavy, bulky, large jar with, this heavy cap. And yeah, so I think it's very important to not be precious about anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I have to send it to you, but there was this funny guy on TikTok who was making this series about like how he started with like soft soap and then like someone gifted him like, I don't know, like a Diptyque soap or something. And he was like, or Aesop. And then he got a Diptyque soap and he was like, it can't get any more, like it can't get more crazy than this. And then he like bought a Loewe like tomato hand soap. And it's like, you can go out there and find like a $200 body cream if you want. But like, Claudia, you're 28, right? Mm-hmm. And I would imagine that you tell me the demographics, but I would imagine a large swath of your followers are even younger.
Mm-hmm, totally. Most of them are like around my age and still like, it's just, I think that's the other thing too, is like exactly knowing your audience. Yeah. And that was definitely like one of the biggest feedbacks was like, I would love to try this, but I just can't afford it, Yeah,
totally. The brand has been fully direct to consumer up till now?
Yes. And we're staying direct to consumer. So everything will be available on Cyklar.com.
So these go live October 16th. Anything you can tell us yet about where Cyklar goes from here in its new iteration?
Of course. I think what I'm most excited about with Cyklar is to build products that have a heavy focus on skincare ingredients in body products while also maintaining just the luxury vibe of delicious fragrances. And so that's sort of the goal moving forward, is combining skincare ingredients with delicious scents.
Love that. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like Crescent is your baby, or is there a scent that you've now fallen equally in love with?
Oh my God, that you are like asking me to choose my children. I will always have a huge place in my heart for Crescent. Like it's at this point now, I've smelled it so many times. You know what I mean? Like sometimes my brain, like I can smell it like on the street somewhere, like someone walks by and I'm like, I'm not assuming that they're like wearing my body cream, but it like reminds me. Do you know what I mean? It's the child I'm always thinking about. But oh my gosh, if I were to have like they all feel so different to me that I cannot choose one over the other. Not yet. I
get
it's
that.
Too painful.
What was it like being a part of that process of developing scents?
Oh my gosh, it is very fun. You leave the office with like a numb nose. Like the days where we would just be smelling like 80 samples of like nearly the same scent and being like, okay, see, but this one has kind of more of like a cola smell to it. This one has more of fruit, Yeah, it's definitely like it can get a little mind numbing, but it's so fun when you nail it. And everyone kind of looks around and we're like, yeah, this is it, Apart from that, like I think the direction felt very clear. I wanted to create fragrances that felt very gender neutral, that anyone can enjoy them. And I think when you're first starting out, like there are sort of categories and buckets of fragrances that everyone just really likes. You know what I mean? Like a wood scent, a floral scent. So I think for this first kind of iteration, it was fun to like choose those categories and be like, all right, let's make a bergamot scent. You know what I mean? So, and then kind of playing within that category and trying to think, okay, how can we make our bergamot smell unique and fresh and different and new and all of that? So it gave us like the perfect kind of room to play.
I was wondering about the gender neutrality because when I opened the deck, it's like this big picture of a male model like in his underwear. And I was like, that's a man.
Yes.
That's a man.
The vibes are sexy.
Yeah. And is this like would you say that like the first iteration of the brand was more directed at women and now this is a change, or this has always been part of the vision for the brand?
I think I've always wanted it to feel gender neutral, but I think with this new sort of relaunch, we're leaning into the sexiness of like the very photo you saw. I mean, gorge. What can we say?
I think really one of my last questions for you, like, how are you going to introduce Cyklar 2.0 to your fans on, 2-something million followers on Instagram, millions of subscribers on YouTube? Do you have, like, what are you thinking about that now? Because it sounds like it's going to be exciting and they're going to be excited because you've taken their feedback into account.
I'm so excited to share this relaunch. One of the ways I will be doing that is, of course, like the intimate approach of just showing behind the scenes footage. And so I have a ton of footage of making these products, testing them, the photo shoots, all of that sort of stuff. I also wanted to try something very different. I wrote, directed, and acted in a commercial for this relaunch. It's very silly. It's not taking itself too seriously, but I've always wanted to direct and I love to write. And so I think that is just going to be it's going to launch like the day of the products launching. But I think what I really want to express and show is just how excited and how passionate I am about Cyklar. And so, yeah, I'm excited to just show different versions of content, both professional and official looking by like literally directing a commercial, to then also just showing, the behind the scenes of it and how excited I am just, trying these samples at home and all of that. And so, yeah, I'm going to take a few different approaches, but I think that's the fun thing about online. Like you can just create and do whatever you want,
Yeah, I love that so much. I think last question, is there something that maybe, people wouldn't know or think that you were really hands-on with in this process that you want them to know that you were?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's like kind of every single crook and cranny. So I'm trying to think of like what would be the most surprising. I think maybe like for all of like the imagery that we have shot for the photos, I think maybe one of the most surprising is how much I'm like standing there next to the model, tilting the bottle or being like, sponge, we need a sponge, we need more suds. And I'm like rubbing my hand and I'm like, okay, this is how we create bubbles. So I prop styling, new hobby of mine, new career path. That is like one of the most fun parts for me is when you're actually getting to use the product and shoot it and all of that. So maybe that.
This has been so much fun. I can't wait to get all these beautiful colors in my shower when they're all done and ready. Congratulations on Cyklar Chapter 2.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, this was so much fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Glossy Beauty Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. It really does help us out. And of course, visit glossy.co/beauty for even more coverage of the beauty industry. Bye.